Welcome to the first episode of Five Questions With. My name is Joey Donovan Guido, and I'm the owner of Cuppa SEO Web Design. And as you may have guessed, this show dives into five questions with a successful business person, entrepreneur, artist, musician, spiritual being, kind of anybody that I feel is going to have great information to share with you to help you on your journey. Um, we really want to understand when we do these questions who our guest is, some of the strategies they've used to be successful, and also some of the struggle they've experienced. And today, my guinea pig, my first guest, is Tom Antion. He is a former professional comedian, an international speaker with over 3,000 appearances, which is mind-boggling to me. He's owned many different businesses over the years, and he's currently the host of a successful podcast called Screw the Commute. And welcome, Tom.
Hey, great to be here, Joey. And I've been called a pig in a lot of different settings, not necessarily a guinea pig.
That's too much already with the jokes. I love it. Yeah, so I guess let's just dive right into question number one.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help entrepreneurs succeed.
Well, I've never had a job. Uh, you know, I actually applied for one job one time, and it said it had a 401k, and I thought, man, that's a good starting salary, 401,000. But I didn't get that job. No, I've never had a job. I've always had my own business since before graduating from college. I owned 5 apartment buildings and a hotel, starting with nothing. Always been entrepreneurial since I was about 10 years old. Sold my first used car when I was 15 years old and didn't even have a learner's permit. So very entrepreneurial. And so that's come up through many different iterations to get where I'm at today. But when the commercial internet came along in 1994, I said, man, well, I was already a working speaker going all over the world speaking. And part of your income in speaking is selling at the back of the room, they call it. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty good at it. But in those days, and some of your listeners won't even know what I'm talking about, we were selling cassettes, cassette tapes. and I'm thinking, when the commercial internet came along, I thought, man, it's hard enough to sell these tapes across the street, let alone sell them around the world from your computer. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm going to figure this out. And so I dug in, and that led to what I'm doing today.
Okay, cool. Tell us just, you work hard. I really, in the time we've spent talking, that's obvious. But more specifically, you work hard at working smart. You are not a wheel spinner. For instance, when you talked about in our previous conversation, receiving training from the 31-year-old grandfather of the internet marketing, Corey
Rudel, yep.
Yeah. How did that situation manifest? It kind of almost sounds like a Steve Jobs thing, like when he called Hewlett Packard and said, hey, can you send me these parts because I want to put something together? Kind of like a total makeshift, like manifestation out of nothing.
Well, the commercial internet started around 1994, and that's when I said, I'm going to figure this out. Well, from 94 to 96, I was trying to figure it out. Didn't make a nickel, was doing everything, buying every piece of software. I mean, my first shopping cart cost $2,000. Wow. And if it actually took an order correctly, we'd throw a big party in the office. So it was crazy back then. But this guy was making $5 million a year, young guy, from his apartment, selling car books and emblems for, I think, Maseratis and just stuff like that. And so he made a course on it, which was $197 at the time, which is a pretty expensive course at the time, but showing about all the things he did. So I bought the course, studied it like crazy. This is after 2 years of failing at every possible thing to sell stuff. And then in the course, it says, well, if you'd like to have a consultation with me, let me know. Well,
Mm.
absolutely I do. I believe on learning from people that blazed the trail, right?
Yeah.
In 1996, it was $1,230 for 30 minutes. All right.
Wow.
So this guy's was 2,400 some an hour. All right. And currently I'm 1,000 an hour, but I mean, this was a lot of money back then, but the guy was doing he deserved it. So I took a 30-minute consultation with him, and he gave me one tip that has made on just one web page. I know you're into web pages and holistic marketing and everything. Got your book right here, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Yay.
Hey.
Guide to holistic marketing. He gave me one tip that one page has made over $1 million. I'll be glad to give it to your folks right now.
Yeah.
And it was the concept of advertorial, which is not hitting your people in the face with products and give me money, give me money, give me money. He actually told me on the call, Tom, hide your products. He said, lead them to the products where there's no sales resistance and you're helping them along the way. And he looked at some of my web pages. I have a product called the Wake 'em Up Professional Speaking System. It was a big $1,000 product. And I had a big picture of it at the top of the page. And he said, Tom, get that picture the heck off of the page. He said, think about this. What are they going to do when they see an expensive looking product at the top of the page? They're going to scroll right to the bottom to look for what? The price. And then they're going to say, oh, I don't want to be a professional speaker that bad. I'm gone. He said, you're a smart guy. Show the benefits before you let him even know there's a product. So he taught me a thing called advertorials, which is an advertisement editorial. And he said, use the 3/4 rule. Don't even let on that there's a product till 3/4 of the way through the sales process. And all the rest of it is benefit, benefit, benefit. Tell them about when you got a butler in Thailand, when you had an apartment bigger than your house for your speaking engagement. Tell them how you got to fly a 747 simulator for Thai Air. And tell them about all these great things, standing ovations and people rolling in the aisles. And by that time, they're going to be so excited. I want to do this. I want to learn how to do this. Where can I find out how to do this? Rather than, oh, $1,000. I don't want to be a speaker that bad. So that one tip out of that $1,230 has made over $1 million from that one web page.
That's amazing.
So it's good to get training from people that have blazed the trail before you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that brings a couple of good points. One is I'm in total agreement with you. As you know already, I'm all about making the connection, addressing the pain point, addressing the benefits that you give to your website visitor or person who's sitting across from you in a chair, right? Whatever it is. If you lead with the benefit, that is so much more palatable and emotionally engaging than saying, hey, buy this, right? Nobody likes to be sold. I don't know anybody ever in the history of my existence that has said, yeah, I just love when that guy comes up to me in the department store and tries to sell me something, like an extended warranty on my stove. Okay.
And speaking of extended warranties, every weird place that I buy stuff, I ask for one. I go to McDonald's and I say, can I get the extended warranty on this Big Mac? And the kid looks at me. Or I buy anywhere I go that it doesn't make sense, I say that. And the people are just, you're crazy. Hurry up, get out.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Can I try that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have a buddy of mine that, he does something with in the clothes department at school, at department stores. He says, I want an extra medium size. Yes. And the people start to go look for it, and then they wait a minute.
I've got a joke with the kids, like when we're in the store and someone's like bugging us. We've never done it, but we've always, decided if maybe we'll do it. And it's this, if someone's trying to sell us something, we say, does that come in yellow? And it's like something like, I don't know, a pair of jeans or whatever.
Right.
Does that come in yellow? Just to see what they'll do. My boys are funny though. If I ever do anything like that, and I do it quite often, like we go to pick up food from takeout and they're like, what's your name? I'm like, Spike. Like, huh? Yeah, Spike. Which of course makes no sense with my hair. But anyway, the second thing I want to touch upon before I forget is that you bring up a great point where sometimes you need to spend some money in order to grow, in order to put yourself in a position to make a lot more money. And over the years, I've seen business owners kind of cap themselves under a very low ceiling where they're just like, it's just going to be me. I'm just going to do it. I don't want to pay anybody anything. And then they wind up in this little tiny, like, corner where it's
I did it.
impossible.
First 2 years, like I said, I can figure this out. I figure everything out. I didn't figure it out.
Yeah.
So I wasted 2 years of sales
Mm.
because I didn't know what I was doing and had that attitude that I can figure it out. Now I'm all for not just sitting back and wanting everybody else to do everything for you. The more
Right.
you learn, the more successful you can be, and the less you spend and the more profit you make. Great. But there comes a time when you're just spinning your wheels and wasting time, when you could easily buy the knowledge from somebody else that could teach you how to do it. So, and that's what most successful consultants and coaches do. I mean, I don't really like the term coach, but my mentor program, that's all I do, is help other people do what I've proven works. And I made all the mistakes so they don't have to. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to invest in yourself one way or the other. You're either going to put years and years in figuring it out on your own, or you're going to find somebody that's done it and invest in them to help you.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, and this, just by the way, it is 5 questions with, but I never said it would only be 5 questions with. So I'm going to ask you a kind of a side question now. Just tell us a little bit more about that quote unquote coaching program that you do.
Well, like I said, I don't really like the term coaching, and I'll tell you why. Is every person on earth that never did a thing in their life wants to be your life coach. so the term has kind of been bastardized a little bit in that field. People understand what it means and everything, but see, mentor was the trusted advisor to Odysseus in Greek mythology. And I'd rather be a trusted advisor than a coach, so the terminology does matter, and it kind of sets you at a higher level as a mentor. So my mentor program kind of made everybody mad, and about 23 years ago when it started. And first of all, I didn't plan on doing this. One of the things my dad taught me is to be excellent at what you do. And when you're excellent at what you do, people notice and then ask you to help them and teach them to be excellent. See, so that's kind of how it worked. I was only trying to learn this to sell my own stuff. And then I got so good at it, people started begging me to teach them. And then I was so busy teaching them, I couldn't do my own stuff anymore. So I started a mentor program, but people at my level were charging at the time 50 or 100,000 bucks up front to small business people to teach them this stuff. And I knew a lot of these people. You give them 50,000 bucks up front, you'd be searching for them in Mexico. They wouldn't even help you.
Yeah.
So I said, that's too risky. I'm a small business advocate. I'm a consumer advocate. I'm going to fix this. So I turned it upside down in that I just charged an entry fee that was like 10 times cheaper than their fees. And I tied myself to their success. So for me to get my 50,000, you had to net or clear 200,000. Well, people really liked this because they knew I wouldn't disappear on them. And 1,700 plus students later, it's still going strong, and that my success is tied to their success. So that really made a lot of people mad at the time, but I don't really care, because my job is to take care of the people under my tutelage, not to make a bunch of other supposed gurus happy and buy their fancy houses, and then I'm coming from my comic background, I'm never going to do what everybody else does. All right. I'm going to go the opposite direction. So that was one example of it. But people started begging me to do a boot camp. Tom, you got to do a boot camp on this. You got to do this. And I'm thinking, oh man, I can't do it. Everybody does boot camps. And I'm sitting here one day working, and I'm thinking, I'm sitting here on my rear end making all this money. I'm going to call it butt camp.
So I knew a joke was coming there.
Well, it's not. It started out as a joke, but I did the first one in late 96, early 97. And it's the longest running ever internet marketing seminar, continuously running. There was about 3 of us at the time doing seminars, and this one's the only one still operating. And I've done them in 11 countries around the world, except in In London, they made me call it bum camp instead of camp. So
That's okay.
yeah, so that's kind of how it evolved, is trying to be great myself, and then people talked me into teaching it to them.
Yeah, that's super. You mentioned your dad, and
Yeah.
you also, in previous conversation, you mentioned that he taught you a serious work ethic, and I was wondering if you could tell us a story or two about how Dad did that.
Well, my dad came on a cattle boat from Syria back in the early 1900s, and our name actually is a mistake. He came into Ellis Island, and in Syria at the time, in the early 1900s, you were named from where you were born. So he was Simon from Antioch. Antioch, Syria is where he was from. And they got to Ellis Island, they're looking at it, they're trying to read it. All right, you're Sam Antion, get in there. So that's how we got our name. And he was total entrepreneur from 10 years old. He was shining shoes to collect money to buy information products from the American school, which was in the late 1800s, for electrical engineering. At 10 years old. And by 13 years old, he had put the first electric light bulb in Carnegie, Pennsylvania. And he had his own electrical contracting firm at 13
You're kidding.
years
Oh
old.
my gosh.
So this is all I saw growing up, was entrepreneurship. And then when I came along, I remember vividly, I was 10 years old, and he was an electrician by trade also too. So he was wiring a box, and I'm sitting there at 10 years old watching him. And so he was meticulously making the wires go up and then across and all this stuff. And I said, Dad, why don't you just cut them across and save yourself some wire and save some money? Oh man, he looked at me with daggers in his eyes. I remember it vividly. I'm getting goose pimples just thinking about it right this moment. He said, don't you ever cut corners to save a few pennies. When somebody looks at this job years from now, they'll know a professional did it. And also they'll be able to troubleshoot it better if something goes wrong. So don't you ever compromise quality for a little bit of a few dollars. Okay, Dad, I got the message, and that's stuck with me to this day. That's why everything I create, I go overboard. I want people to say, man, I can't believe we got so much value for so little money. And so that was the one turning point that, I mean, he lived it all the time, but that's the one that I remember. He was in my face. Don't you ever be anything but excellent in your work. So that was it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh, and you're basically sitting here talking to him, tell you the truth. He passed away 20 years ago, but you see this sign behind me with the baby?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, do you remember Johnny Cash?
Yeah, man.
Okay, well, Johnny Cash wrote a song called A Boy Named Sue. And it was about an old drunk cowboy who named his kid. He figured he wouldn't be there to raise the kids, so he named him Sue to make him fight and scrap and get teased and make him tough. Okay, that was the premise of it. Well, my dad was 50 when he had me. I was the baby of 6 boys. And he figured he wouldn't be around to raise me. So, and he only went to the 2nd grade, but he was the smartest guy I knew. So this was a seminar we did in his honor after he passed. But when I was just a baby crawling, he would put my toys, maybe you can see the ball there, on the other side of pillows to teach me to overcome obstacles, to scratch and crawl and get where you're going. And now to this day, I won't cheat anybody or step on them to get there. But if you tell me I can't do something, you better get out of the way as I blow by you doing it. All right. And for the audience out there, when somebody tells you can't do something, you know what that means? They can't do it. Has nothing to do with you at all. So you got to cut those negative Nellies out of your head and just go do it. And maybe you'll fail, maybe you won't, but you're definitely going to fail if you don't try.
Yeah. That's great advice. And sometimes that negative Nelly is ourselves. And I think that's important to, acknowledge that, accept that as a thought or a feeling. And also, like you said, do it anyway. Just get out there and take, what is the first step I need to take, right? You may not know all the steps, right? But that's why someone comes to us for a website. Somebody comes to you for a mentorship or or, through the years, many other reasons. And actually,
Well,
that's
and
something.
the what you need to learn will appear as you go.
Yeah.
But if you sit here and think, I got to think the whole thing out. In fact, I think that guy that wrote the book In Search of Excellence, even 20 years ago, said, you're crazy for long-term strategic planning. A lot of the stuff that you'll be using hasn't even been invented yet.
Yep.
So you got to start, and then things will appear that you have to overcome, and you do it, you learn, you figure out how to get past it, and you keep moving forward that way.
Yeah.
People ask me about goal setting all the time. There's a lot of stuff on goal setting. I said, you know what? I can't think of anything that I've ever achieved as a goal, because I got a mind game I play with myself. As soon as I get anywhere near it, it disappears and a new one starts past it. And that's what keeps me going forward all the time. Just a little mind trick.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for sharing those stories. I like those a lot. My dad has some similar ones where he grew up without a dad. He died. My grandpa died when my dad was 2.
Wow.
And my grandma Frances raised 4 kids. Grandma Frances was amazing. But he didn't finish college. He did go to high school, but I was born when he was just starting architecture school, dropped out and was a retail salesman at Barney's in New York, and somehow built himself in his profession to a sales director at these like multi-million-dollar clothing firms, which was just amazing to see. And like something when you see that, it can be done. When you see, it's not always perfect. I'm sure your dad had struggle moments. Mine did. I do. But my boys see me looking at the situation. Okay, here's what's going on. Well, what can I try? And like you mentioned, something always manifests. If we are being active in the process, something presents itself for us to try, to test, to do, to ask. And then that kind of just one more step until we get there. But then where is there? Because once we get to what that there was, like you said, there's all these other steps.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing happened. Talk about struggles. My dad came as a 3-year-old to Carnegie, Pennsylvania, and no shoes. They're all a bunch of ragamuffins kids, with nothing. And he found a wallet in the guy. He's 6 years old. Found a wallet in the street, had $100 in it. $100. In those days, you could buy a whole bag of groceries for a nickel. And so my dad went out and bought tricycles for all the kids in the neighborhood at the hardware store. Well, wait a minute, though. So all of a sudden, these kids with nothing are riding these brand new tricycles around. And so the word gets around, and he gets hauled into court at 6 years old. And the guy that owned the wallet said, that was my wallet, and these kids stole that money. And he says, the judge is thinking, what are we going to do with these little kids? He says, and the guy says, I want all that money back. I want every nickel back. And the judge says, screw you. And the judge kept the rest of the money and sent the kids home. They all had new tricycles.
Oh boy.
And then when they went home and told their parents, where'd you get that tricycle? They said, oh, Sam bought it for us, the 6-year-old baby. And everybody was like crazy. Wow. But yeah, struggles in those days, we can't even imagine what it was like. No air conditioning. I think for a while my dad was hauling ice for the actual ice boxes up and down the hills of Pittsburgh, so can't imagine what the kids today definitely can't imagine what it was like for our parents.
Back then. Yeah. This is the last question, but let's just talk about it now since we're talking about struggle. Through all the businesses you've owned over the years, which one provided you with the greatest challenge, and how did you handle that?
Okay, that was pretty easy with that one. So I went to college on a football scholarship, and as I think I told you earlier, I owned 5 apartment buildings and a hotel before I graduated from college, starting with nothing. And I got out of college and I got my pilot's license. I was a freelance charter pilot for a while, but that's kind of like a high-class chauffeur is all that was. And sounds cool. And then my mother talked me into buying a club because she had gone to this place that it was like a sing along, and they'd throw peanuts on the floor, and it was, you know, a lot of fun. So I said, okay, I'll do that. So I did it, and I took over a biker bar. in my in my youth, my crazy youth, thinking this was a good idea. So I did it. I turned it into this sing along, and then I got bored with that. Remember, I'm always looking ahead. And so I built on this other big section and turned it into the second biggest nightclub in the state. We did Hawaiian tropic pageants there and all kinds of stuff. It was, you know, people came from all around. But somehow these bikers just were not happy about getting kicked out of their hangout. And so I was in 2 gunfights, knife fights, over 100 violent encounters. They shot up my car with shotgun blasts. They burnt down my sign. They were trying to kill me, basically. And
Nice.
I had been in martial arts since I was in high school. So I was, and also with major college football, you get pretty tough, but this was nothing like any of that stuff. So I started taking lessons with Aikido Jitsu guys, and because one of the problems is that I could easily knock out some of these guys and take them out, but then they'd sue you, see, because they got nothing and you're the big nightclub owner. So I got extremely good at creating enormous amounts of pain without bruising somebody.
That's nice.
Yeah. So I was working out with special forces guys, and you know, and so that was the big challenge there. And it was 7 days a week. And you said I'm a hard worker. 7 days a week for 6 years.
Wow.
We got 4 days off a year. And 1 didn't matter because it was New Year's Day, but you were shot so bad from New Year's Eve that, you know, you just slept all day. So that was the one that presented the most challenges. And then after that, I was on my way to being a millionaire by the time I'm 30. This was in the mid 80s. The drinking age went from 18 to 21 and wiped me out. I lost $400,000, lost everything, but I refused to go bankrupt. I went to every creditor and I said, look, you know me for a long time. I had nothing to do with this, you know, this trouble that we're having. If you give me time, I'll pay you off. And they all said yes. And I paid everybody off, every nickel. I don't remember how long it took, but if I went back there this day, they'd remember me as the guy that wouldn't screw over people, you know. So that was the biggest challenge. So what I did about it was I got better training from people more advanced in the martial arts, so I wouldn't get sued all the time. And then I refused to go bankrupt. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with bankruptcy, but it just I just did not want to screw over people that had taken, you know, given me the grace of, you know, giving me products and services and money before this happened, and then to screw them over was just not in my DNA. So those are the things that were the biggest challenges, and then kind of paid off because they're doing a documentary about it and called The American Entrepreneur, about my dad coming from Syria, becoming an entrepreneur, making me into an entrepreneur. And then I've helped thousands of entrepreneurs. But when they came to me about it, I said, I thought you're supposed to be dead to have a documentary. And they said, no, you don't have to die. Don't worry. So really humbled by that. It should be coming out this summer sometime.
Cool. Then that was actually my final question. It's kind of a unique, surreal situation. And in addition, from what I gleaned from the trailer, one was you were highlighting a lot of people are being highlighted. So it's just kind of like what you talked about earlier about the benefits. It wasn't all Tom centric. It was about the people that you've helped and their stories too, which I was touched by. And one of the things I love about it is that it kind of focuses on, you know, to put it bluntly, the pain and misery of commuting to and from a job, working, you know, unfulfilled to make somebody else rich.
Well, you know, when people look at my resume, it kind of looks like BS. I agree, because how could somebody do all this stuff, you know, in one lifetime? But I contend, you know, my podcast is called Screw the Commute, that if you aren't in that car blowing, how many hours a day do you blow by the time you get up, get ready, you got to dress a certain way, you got to spend money on clothes you wouldn't have spent on, and you got to get in traffic, spend gas, oil, and insurance to get there, make them rich, and do the same thing coming back, and miss your family, all that stuff. You could live 2 or 3 lives and have a better life if you weren't doing that. So that's why it's my mission to help as many people as I can screw the commute. And currently, we're doing a project for people with disabilities, persons with disabilities. I'm doing a big GoFundMe thing to finance 4 people to go through my school, and then get them hired or get them to start their own business where they can work at home. And then I'm taking a grant writing course to expand that even bigger. Like I said, I'm always looking past something bigger. So that's the big project on my plate right now, to do some good in the world.
Cool. So kind of part 2 of that question is just as we wrap up, what's the number 1 thing you'd like to share with viewers who are in the boat right now, where they are getting screwed by the commute, so to speak, and unhappy in the corporate world, which is why I do what I do, right? Because it wasn't for me, that's for sure. But we've got this extra layer, that they're kind of stuck in the situation in the midst of a pandemic. What's your number 1 thing you'd like to share to help them kind of take that leap to entrepreneur?
If there's one good thing that came out of the pandemic, it's something I've been preaching for at least 23 years, is that you can legitimately work from home. I've been doing it 44 years myself, all right, before the internet even came around. But that did bring that to light. And that's actually why I decided to roll out this program now, because the whole world has got the message now. Hey, we can legitimately work from home. So the people that are thinking about transitioning to this, you got to embrace the fact that we have digital information products that can bring you money at 97% profit with no inventory technically, although I did throw a crazy thing one time where I had an ebook clearance sale. I said the boss says, you got to move out these old electrons, they're messing up the computer, we got the new electrons coming in. I sold $9,600 of half price ebooks that day.
Wow.
But the digital world allows you to sell information at super high profit with super low expense if you know what you're doing. And I implore anybody, even if they're a landscaper, there's yoga people that you talked about in your book, every business on earth, if they would add a digital part of their business, could make way more money than the physical part of their business. For instance, this yoga studio can only draw so many people from so many miles. That's it. Nobody's going to come from Toledo, Ohio to wherever these people are for their 30-minute yoga class, all right? But if they would have a whole series of digital products on different types of yoga and what to look for in a yoga studio, all these things, they could be bringing in money from around the world rather than just in a little microcosm of the world. So people have to start thinking digitally, and they don't have to quit their job or quit what they're doing. They add this. And my goal, Joey, is to make it too expensive for you to go to work anymore, because you're doing this other stuff. And when it eventually takes over, you could make more money working on it than you can wasting your time at the job. And that's when you tell them to take this job and shove.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's actually what I did. When I started Cuppa SEO, I had 3 jobs. This was one of them. And it got to a point where I was literally losing $75+ an hour doing the other jobs.
Right.
I was like, all right, this is beautiful. This is the goal, right? And then I was able to take that leap. I kind of have a fun curveball for you before we finish, because I was thinking about this morning, and a couple of years ago, my wife, for the holidays, she got me this kind of 100 amazingly corny jokes little kind of book card set. So I pulled out a few of my favorites, and I wanted to share with you them with you and see, like, kind of give them a grade.
Yeah,
are they any good?
I got a couple of my own I can give you too.
Oh yeah, let's share. All right, so I'll go first.
All right.
What do you call a guy with a rubber toe?
I don't know.
Roberto.
Okay. I'll give that a 2 on a scale of 1. Or no, that's a good little kid joke.
Yeah.
All right. So how about this one? Two guys stole a calendar. They each got 6 months.
Oh, that's good. I'm going to tell my kids that. Right, so I'll share one more. It's just funny, this thing, especially in the pandemic, I got into this habit during the pandemic, like before bed, I'd start rattling these off while the kids are brushing their teeth and stuff. And it kind of, I don't know, it just helps. Humor really can help.
Oh, talk about dad jokes. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how do cows like to do their shopping?
I don't know.
From catalogs.
All right. Why did the turtle cross the road?
I don't know.
To get to the Shell station.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute. Well, this has been fantastic. It's really been a joy to talk with you and learn from you.
It's the most fun I've had being a pig.
Before we go, I want to give you an opportunity. If there's anything that you'd like to ask our viewers to do, if there's anything you want to, we're going to have links to all your stuff just below.
Oh, I got a big freebie for them that will help them in anything. I mean, even if they're not in business, this will help you, but it's how I automate my business. It's a $27 ebook that we sell, but we're going to give away today to your listeners. They go to screwthecommute.com/automate free, screwthecommute.com/automate free. And just one of the tips in this book, we actually estimated a couple years ago, has saved me 7.5 million keystrokes.
Nice.
The way to automate things in your business. And that's just one. There's cell phone automation tips. There's all kinds of things, and everything is dirt cheap or free. But it's how I've been able to handle up to 150,000 subscribers and 60,000 customers without pulling my hair out. So definitely let them download that, and I'll say you're welcome right now, because they're going to thank you for when they do the stuff in it.
Great.
Yeah, well, and if they're interested in the mentoring program, it's greatinternetmarketingtraining.com. And then the podcast is screwthecommute.com, and you have been on it. I don't remember what episode number, but they make sure they should check out your episode.
Yeah. And we'll have all those links right below when you guys are done watching this, so you can get to all those links Tom shared really easily. It has been a blast. Thank you very much, brother. And many blessings to you.
Good luck with the new show, man.
Thank you.